So Richie, I thought it'd be interesting to start with a kind of a strange question. Judas Priest is celebrating 50 years, and what's it like being in a band that's older than you?
It's great, man. You get to learn a lot of stuff that's already been learned. You know what I mean? They pass down a lot of knowledge and stuff or they've already gone through the ringer. You know what I mean? They've already found out. I mean, they kind of wrote the rule book. They were jointly responsible with a couple of other bands for writing the rule book on heavy metal as we know it. They kind of, you had bands before it like Deep Purple and bands like that. But then the heavy metal moniker, as we know it, Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, they were kind of responsible for coining that term and refining that style of music. So before them, there wasn't heavy metal as we know it. So they were finding out all those things as they went along, and they were forging that kind of style of music as they went along. So there was no rule book; they wrote it. So now, for me, learning from those guys, it's an incredible education, really, on what to do, how they do things, why they do things. And as you said, the 50 years, people often ask me what the secret is. And I don't know if there's one secret to be had, but one of them, you can definitely see there's a passion for what they do still. I don't think you could do something like this on this level for 50 years if part of that wasn't a passion for what you do. Partly it's the fans that put the band there, but and that can't be denied. But if you haven't got a passion for what you do, you wouldn't be doing it after 50 years. And it's a dedication to what do we do this time around? How do we, put on a bigger or a better or a different experience in the production or the live show or the set list or, just something different? How do we, is a different generation of Priest fans out there? How do we welcome them in? Or, in a studio setting, we're going to do a new album. How do we do this in a way that satisfies our own creative juices, but in the same way, we've got fans there that are 50 years in. We're going to be true to our roots, true to the fans, but also, the new fans that are out there, all those sort of thoughts that go into something that you're passionate about, which we all do. We're all passionate about certain things. So it's great to watch them and have thoughts about Judas Priest as an entity 50 years in and think, that's partly what it is. And that's what, hopefully I'll still have in the next 50 years when I'm in my, band and I'm old and grayer, shall we say, so it's great to watch.
Yeah. So you joined up in 2011, and I wanted to read a quote from Rob Halford. You've probably seen this before, but in 2015, Rob said, let's face it, to some extent, Richie saved Judas Priest, because if we hadn't found him at the crucial time that we were looking for a guitar player, things could have turned out quite differently. And I was wondering, when you were kind of thrust into the situation they were around 40 years at that point and had done all these things that, as you just said, did you realize that this band was at a crossroads and they kind of needed someone to come in and maybe a younger person, and you weren't there just to fill a role, you became a key writer within the band and all that. Did you realize all of that when you were coming into it?
It's incredibly nice of Rob to say, and I obviously I didn't realize that when you come into a situation, you don't realize what that situation is like behind closed doors. And I didn't realize, excuse me, just let me tie my mop back, but I realized, I didn't realize coming in, but when I sat down with the guys in the initial conversation, it explained to me, and it was very clear that they wanted someone as part of the band. They wanted someone who had their own opinion, and I played a Les Paul and a Flying V and a Gibson SG and stuff like that, and different to Ken, really. And they wanted someone who was their own person. And I get called a clone a lot, which is quite ironic. I think it's because the blonde hair or whatever. Getting back to your point, it was they wanted someone who was part of the band. We didn't know if the writing was going to be cohesive. We didn't know. You can't know until you start writing. But it was clear that they wanted someone as part of the band. They wanted a band member, someone who's going to pull in the right direction. They didn't want a hired gun who was just going to show up for live shows, get their paycheck and bugger off. They wanted someone that added their opinion to the band, and it's been that way. And that wasn't just lip service. I think when I think the first example of that was in those discussions. They told me what they wanted, as far as a band member and a guitar player. They asked me what I wanted and what I didn't want, which I was surprised at the question. But looking back on it, it gave me an insight into exactly what I just said. They wanted my opinion. They wanted to hear what I wanted as a band member, what would make me comfortable, or what would make the person that got that role comfortable as a Judas Priest band member. I went to get fitted for the leather and the studs, and I had a conversation with the designer, Ray Brown, and he asked me if I had any ideas for the design of that sort of stuff, and set list, and do I have any ideas how we can work together to change the songs a little bit. So it wasn't just lip service. It was very much they meant it. They wanted someone who had an opinion. And I think Glenn said to me once, they've been in the band at the time for 40 plus years. I'm going to have a totally different opinion to all of them, and it's one that he thinks is a valuable one. And we're all going to disagree at some point, and that's fine. But a different opinion is always a valuable one. And getting back to your first question, all that stuff is like an education in whatever you do. You can take pointers like this in an office or a football team or a band or whatever it might be, and kind of apply them. And I think that was, it's a massive education in how to do things as a group.
You mentioned getting fitted for the leather and the studs, and I thought that was interesting because Judas Priest kind of, I don't know if they invented that look, but the look of heavy metal is the look that Judas Priest came up with, and it's kind of like a uniform, like a team, like a sports team. When you first put that on and you're waiting to go the house music to come down or whatever, when you first had that on and that moment you were about to go on stage with this band for the first time, do you remember what was going through your head, what it felt like?
I wish I remember. It's one of those. I remember the first time I put it on as I said, in the guy that makes our clothes. I remember when I put it on, I felt like a superhero, because you become, you're just like Clark Kent becoming Superman. You put on you take on a different. It embodies so much, as you said. They defined or refined that leather and studs became heavy metal. It became symbolic of heavy metal. So when you put that on, you become part of that image. That history and that whole symbolic thing of heavy metal. But I don't remember much of that first show that I did with them. Unfortunately, it was just such a blur, such a overwhelming overflow of emotion. I think I remember the second show, but I think it was just a case of getting your head down and doing it. And I just wish I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like the first time I put it on, though, was definitely like a superhero costume, and you become one of five, become one of a group, and then obviously the people in the audience as well. They've got the leather and studs on, so you become one of a whole. So it's quite a powerful thing.
Yeah, Rob Halford is known as the metal god, and I think if someone has to be the metal god, it probably should be him. And just from a fan standpoint, an outside standpoint, this guy is, larger than life. He's always talking about heavy metal, whether it's social media interviews. He's just the metal god. Kind of behind closed doors, without giving away too much and ruining the mystery of it or whatever, but having worked with him now for more than 10 years, how would you kind of describe the metal god, just as, Rob, the somewhat regular guy, maybe?
Rob's Rob's a very sort of quiet guy, which a lot of larger than life people, like Jimi Hendrix, had the reputation of being, the wild man on stage, and then he was very very shy and quiet, off stage. Rob's a little bit like that, so he can be very quiet, very reserved. He's very funny. He's very every now and then he'll put like a little quip in there. He's very 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 humorous sort of guy. But he's great to get. Obviously, he's great to get along with. We have some good conversations traveling. We'll hit on a subject and then we'll talk about that. Like the whole journey. He's very creative. He's one of these people. Like we all are. We'll throw a lot of ideas out, and that's probably where a lot of the Priest stuff. That kind of genre defining stuff come from, and it may be that a percentage of the like we all do, we throw like a load of ideas out there, and some of them stick and some of them don't, but those ones that do stick, in his case, was genre defining. You know what I mean? And he's that sort of guy, always throwing ideas out. He sends me texts and, hey, what about this, and I've got this idea, and he'll send me ideas of, if we're in coming up with ideas for albums or songs. He will throw me ideas for like melodies or vocal lines and stuff, and so he will get stuff like that in his head and then throw them at me, So, but he in general, he's very reserved. But on the other hand, he can be quite crass. You know what I mean? So, but he's a good pal. So it will be good. I'm seeing him in about a week's time, so it'll be good to catch up.
Yeah. So the most recent album, I believe, came out in 2018. Firepower, and that one was I personally really enjoy it, but not just me. It was really well received by fans and press and everything like that. So moving on from that, I know the focus right now is on the tour, but is there any new Judas Priest music in the works right now?
Yeah, there is. It's been we've been working on it for quite a while. The obstacle was the lockdowns due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We started actually writing it and getting it together in early. I mean, it was around 19, but we started getting it together in early 2020. Me, Glenn, and Rob got together and started refining them into a batch of songs. And then the lockdowns happened, and we couldn't get together and record them. Record them properly. We had a batch of demos. We couldn't get together, and when the lockdowns were lifted, then we were on a tour cycle. We started the tour cycle last year, so we couldn't record them and get together because we were on a tour cycle. So, but we've been trying to navigate around the tour cycle and get bits and pieces done. Luckily, these days we don't have to be in a massive facility in somewhere exotic to record an album for 2 years. We can do it a lot more economically as technology allows. So we're getting it done. We as I said earlier on, we're thinking of ways to do it, because the fans would like to hear another album. We'd like to put another album out. So we're getting through it. I think we've got most of the guitars done, the drums and the bass done. I think we need to get some vocals done, but we've got a tour cycle, so Rob needs to save his voice for that. So maybe we'll get the vocals done early next year, and then we'll see where we are. But it's getting done. It's we're getting through it as we can. It's sounding great. I spoke to Andy the other day, and he had a listen to it, what we've got, and he said it's sounding confident. It's sounding really good. He said it's not Firepower 2 in a positive sense. If you know what I mean. It's not like a follow on from. Firepower connected with a lot of people around the world, but we're not just kind of repeating that formula, if you know what I mean. It's an album that stands on its own legs, as all Priest albums do. So yeah, when we can, we'll get it done, and you guys will be the first to know.
So with a lot of tour dates up ahead, you're talking about new music. This doesn't sound like a band that's getting ready to kind of wrap things up or announce a farewell tour or something. I mean, has there been any talk of that, or is it kind of just full steam ahead and take it? Not, it's a cliche, but take it one day at a time, or one tour at a time, one album at a time.
it's hard to say, really. You know, because of the whole the COVID thing. It's kind of put everything up in the air in regards to the record. I mean, if it wasn't for COVID, we would have, you know, we're kind of 2 years behind where we normally would have been, like as everyone is really. So I think we're gonna do this 50 years, you know, 50 years of metal tour. We're gonna finish the record, and then usually with the record comes a tour for the record, you know. But that's usually, it's hard to say. That's normally what happens, but you know, it's hard to see into the future with what happened, you know, with COVID. But I'd say that's what usually happens. So watch this space, you know. But we've got to get the record. We've got to get this tour finished, then the record finished, and then we'll see what happens from there.
Yeah. So with a little bit of time left, I wanted to see if you give me a little bit of a health update for those who don't know. They should just Google it. But about a year ago was when your aorta ruptured on stage, which I can only imagine how horrific that was. But I wanted to see if you could just tell me, you know, how you're feeling, and if, because of the surgery and everything, if you've had to change anything about the way you tour, or even just general lifestyle changes.
Well, I'm feeling good. I had to have a second surgery about, I think it's about 6 weeks ago. There was a complication with it, but it's all fine. Surgeons I came in from Europe, had the surgery straight away, and they were okay with me having the time we had off to recover, and then we're going out again, obviously, in the United States in about a week. The lifestyle change, really, I'm very fortunate. I mean, people, you know, are a lot less fortunate than me. You know, they lose limbs, or, you know, cousin of mine has got diabetes. She's got complications with her legs and stuff. So the thing that I have to do, I have to take medication for the rest of my life, and to me, that's the lucky end of the scale, shall we say? You know, so that's what I have to do. I have to watch my diet a little bit. It's not my heart, it's the aorta, it's the blood more than anything. I have to watch, and blood pressure. So I have to watch. I can't eat too many leafy greens, which I'm okay with. You know, apart from that, it's medication. So I'm doing fine, feeling strong, and yeah, I'm doing good. I appreciate you asking. Hopefully I'm all fixed up now, and I can get back to touring next week, and looking forward to seeing you all.
Good. All right, Richie. Well, I think our time is about up, so I really appreciate it. It was great talking to you today.
You too, Michael. Take care, man, and yeah, take care. Bye, man.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.